Hey everybody, welcome back. This is Blacktop Banter, and this is episode 55. So, like I said, like I always say, I try finding a variety of guests and people that will join us beyond from whether it's in our industry or outside of our industry. And this one just so happens to be from inside our industry. So, if you're on Instagram at all, you know that our industry has a pretty good presence there, actually a better community because it's not so huge. It's not like we're talking football or we're talking politics or we're talking whatever. It allows you to stay close knit, which is kind of nice because it allows for interactions like these ones, like we're going to talk about right now. So, with no further ado, uh, I'll talk about how we got kind of met up. So, Copperstate Hose started commenting on some of our videos about, whether we were using our Craftco or whether it was the banter highlighting some of these crack filling machines and things at some of the expos. And pretty soon that conversation led into me figuring out what Copperstate Hose really did. And it led to me talking to my friend Evan, who is now on the podcast with us. Evan, you want to introduce yourself and let us know what you do there and kind of introduce Copperstate too, if you would.
Well, my name is Evan Dundas. I've been here for, I'd say, 37 years now because it's a family business, and I'm pretty sure I was conceived in one of the old offices.
That's all right. Good ideas.
No,
That's
no,
right. That's right. Great
it's
things are made there at Copperstate, I hear.
it's been a interesting run because I've been making hydraulic hoses since I can remember, and we, I don't know, being blessed in this, I took some time off in the military and then came back and just, fell right back into the family business, and it's just been a very cool job to say because you don't understand in the world of hose, everything you manufacture or use in your life has gone through a hose at some point.
Really?
Most
I
people,
guess that is an interesting fact.
no one thinks about that. I mean, you go to the grocery store, your milk has gone through a hose. You go to get gas, it's gone through a hose. The steel that you're gonna make something out of eventually was ground to a powder and pumped through a hose into a furnace and cooked.
Oh,
It's
really? Yeah.
most people don't realize how many compounds in this world go through a hose.
Oh. So when
So
we
it,
talk about Copperstate Hose, um, you know, when you and I have interacted, it's always been on a crack filling machine or something like that. And so to hear you talk, there's a lot of hoses that you guys make. So it's not just, there are crack filling hoses, but hydraulic hoses and other hoses there at Copper State.
Yes, we're one of like 20 shops in the country that actually do stainless bellows, where we weld the stainless flex connectors. They're actually on a lot of kettles too. They're called vibration absorbers or expansion joints.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so you take a stainless core and you braid it, and you put collars on and you weld it up, and you make a hose that's made of metal.
So it's made so that if we're going down the road or whatever with it, it doesn't crack and break and as often, I guess, is what we're trying to say.
Yeah, and it's
Right.
used for like we have a lab out here at Honeywell Tempe, and we got contracted with them when they were doing the Joint Strike Fighter. It was classified at the time, but the motor moved, and they couldn't tell us that the motor moved.
Oh,
you
really?
know, and so I kept them. We were problem solving with them, and I just asked them what was happening. They were kind of trying to build a hose that went through all 290 feet of their plant to do the exhausting so it could go to their exhaust jet where they have a room for the exhausting. But
Huh.
since the motor moves, they couldn't do it. And I kind of figured out what they were doing. So we built a hose that went through the roof instead because they could just
Dang.
exhaust in the open air.
Dang, really?
Yeah, it was a very interesting project to work on.
Do you get many projects like that where it's like
Yeah, we do a
it's
recurring project for the Navy, like the USS Sampson and Cole. I make hoses for them pretty much bi-monthly or whenever we're called on to.
do you get situations where you're like, this is a unique situation, we need to make a one-time certain type of hose? Do you guys get those too?
Yes.
Man, that's got to be an expensive hose. All I could think was
Yeah,
like way up in the Yukon. Like I watch Gold Rush once in a while, and there's like certain specific hoses and things that are on those things, and that's what I was thinking of. Was like, hey, yeah, this one's going over here, and it's a one certain type of a hose because they rigged it up special. You know what I mean?
we actually made the largest hose in the Southwest, and
What?
it's a 3 foot diameter by 33 foot long stainless hose with a liner made for oxygen.
What?
And Yeah, and it supplies the Phelps Dodge Miami mine with, I think it was 700 gallons of liquid oxygen a minute. It's crazy.
Dang.
Yeah, because it's what the hose is actually inside the mine, so you never see it. It was built to drop into the mine to supply the furnace that cooks the copper for the copper furnace out there.
Dang. I bet you
So
that's a Guinness Book of World Records hose, I bet.
it was until the Chinese cloned it and made their own.
Oh, it actually was. Okay. So
Yeah.
it was a record-breaking hose at one point. I gotcha.
We had a custom semi truck made for it to pick the hose up.
Get out. It
Yeah,
was 33 feet long. How much did that sucker weigh? It had to have been a heavy pig.
Actually, the hose itself wasn't too bad. It was the flanges that were terrible.
I bet.
The flanges were probably about 700 pounds each with all the stuff that had to go to them.
That's crazy. So how did Copperstate get started? You said, it's family business. Can you give us a little bit of history?
Yeah, my father, Robert Dundas, started it. He used to be a manager at another hose shop called Hose Power, and he was the head machinist in charge of the machining and all that over there at Granbury Supply.
Yep.
And it started because my dad gave a kid a raise for 50 cents that was based on his time being there, and the owner took that raise from the kid, then fired the kid, then spent $10,000 on a toolbox for his son.
Okay.
And
all right.
So my dad just took that personally and started his business out of his garage.
Wow. That's crazy.
He took it personal, like he promised that kid that raise, and that man, told him it was okay, then backed out of it.
That's crazy. Yeah, you hear a lot about that. Like the previous podcast before this one, we had Casey from Bin Blasters on there, and Casey said the same thing. Like he was the top sales guy, and that apparently he was too vocal. He was like, I was the guy that probably deserved it, and they were giving me a hard time, because I had great ideas and everything. And here he starts Bin Blasters and does his own thing, and it's kind of a similar. I would imagine a similar thing there with your dad. So how did he what was the bread and butter hose to start?
The metal hose, because not a lot of people do it.
Way back then too, way back.
Oh yeah.
Oh really?
It's a small niche industry, and it takes a lot of skill and knowledge to be into it. I mean, you can go find some welders who make $95 an hour and say weld this, and they will go and just destroy it.
Dang.
It's a very patient process, and it takes I don't know, it's a lot of the time to build up to acquire the skills to actually do the manufacturing side of it.
So when you say a metal hose, what do you mean? Not just a braided, not like a rubber hose and then a steel braid on the outside, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like that, but the core of the hose will be convoluted or helical spiral wrapped hose. That's metal that was once a tubing that gets sent through these huge dies and gets crushed into bellows. And those bellows actually become extremely flexible.
Dang.
And it was actually made for NASA originally to help with the salt problems of vacuum in space. And they discovered they can make a engineer design the bellows, and it became flexible.
Dang. So
that's what the hoses
so that's
were
what
originally
it started.
made. Yeah, for space exploration.
Dang, dude, that's a crazy story. That's a crazy story to think that's where it started.
People don't realize that's what that metal hose was made for originally.
Dang, dude.
It was actually a company called Senior Flexonics. I have some of their stuff hanging on the wall here.
So I imagine the process has changed, right? Quite a bit on how these are produced from 50, 60 years ago to now.
Oh, yeah. Tons have changed.
Yeah, and that's wild to think they used to do it. They must have done it archaic, back then as far as handwork versus everything's got to be automated now. I believe.
Oh no,
correct.
Well, not in that way. It's still all done by physical labor.
Get out, really?
Oh yeah. There's hoses right now. I have a job out there that's going to some jet engines, and I'm teaching the younger kids how to do them because they go out there and they're like, "What?" I'm like, "Nope.
Yeah.
It has to be done this way," and they don't understand because we have some automated welders here, and name them what lost now. But one of the machines out there is a robotic welder, and it just does circle welding. So pipe flanges and a little assemblies. You put them in and load them and weld it.
Dude, that's crazy. So it must be like for you to have to go teach people. There can't be very many people that know how to do this in the world. let alone
I,
in the United States that do it really, really well. Correct?
yeah, well, we go to what's called like NAHAD, and that's the North American Hose Association and distributors. There's
Okay.
probably 700 guys that can weld it really well in the U.S.
Damn, that's wild,
But
man.
it's a small industry if you think about it.
Yeah, and I've always known that. Like, usually, if something is a super small industry, most of the people that own the business or like produce whatever the product is are really, really good at what they do, and there's not very many people that are that good at what they do. Like, but we're on TikTok, and I somehow wandered onto a page where these Japanese guys made teapots out of clay, and it wasn't like a pottery wheel. Like, they would roll it out by hand and then cut it and then press it. And I was like, dude,
Oh
these
wow.
things are unbelievable. And there has to be only a certain amount of people that can do it and do it really, really well. And sure enough, it's like these really old Japanese guys, and they're trying to hand it down to like the next generation, so that they know how to do it. So it's kind of like that, and the fact that it's a niche kind of thing that you do with the hoses, and not only just random hoses, but specialty hoses, specialty things. The problem solving aspect, I imagine, is pretty incentivized in your industry and within Copper State itself. Somebody comes to you with a unique situation and they're like, hey, we need this to be engineered and created and made, I would imagine, correct?
Oh yeah, and that's a lot of it is like specifically in our joint industry of the kettles. I
Yep.
mean, it is mind-boggling to go to. 'Cause they don't look like some of these manufacturers, like say Craftco, when they first hired my father to help problem solve these hoses.
Yep.
We came in and we know hose. Can you grab the other phones? Get another phone and take it out of the shop for me. But that's sorry.
You're
And
all good.
we go in there and my dad figures out everything that was going on, where they're pinching hoses, kinking hoses. There's a formula in the hose world called stamped, and
Okay.
that formula it's just like size, temperature, air, media, environment, and design.
Okay.
So if you go into any application and say, what's the size, what is it for, how are you using it, you can easily make a hose last years. But
Really?
most of these guys won't want to listen to that formula. They don't. It's called pretengineers sometimes, because a pretengineer will say, this is how it's engineered, this is how it's going to work. That's great on theory, but in application and practice, it will not work. It's going to break, it's going to bust, it's going to kink, it's going to do this.
So that's the greatest thing I ever heard was pretengineers. I wish I would have known that a long time ago, man. There's
Oh my God.
I know. See, what they do is, and I know this just from previous experience, they put something up on a computer and they think the physics say okay, and this is
Oh yeah.
how this will work. And then when it actually gets in the field, it doesn't work. We used to do that here in Wisconsin. The business I grew up working in, we hung seamless gutters, and they would hang them over cow yards to prevent runoff into the tributaries and things. And they would have it with a certain amount of drop after so many feet. Well, if you look at a building, most of the time the facer board, like the face of where the roof hits the soffit, is usually only about 8 inches, right? And they would have it saying, hey, it needs like 24 inches of drop in 100 feet. Well, there isn't 24 inches of face. You know what I mean? So you would get out there and you would be like, oh, this is not going to work. There's no way. And on paper, to engineers, it looked like it was going to work just fine. So I get what you're saying. Well, let's elaborate on that a little bit, because you mentioned Craftco. Let's talk about hoses in our industry, our joint industry here, the asphalt industry. I know we've talked about the Craftco. Maybe you can tell us what hoses on the Craftco specifically, and then if there are other hoses in our industry that you guys take care of and create, maybe touch on that too.
Okay. Well, we'll just start with Craftco.
Yep.
Craftco uses a 12/24 volt system, which is archaic in design. I mean, it was great in 1993 and 86 when they were starting this.
Yep.
But they still stick to that design, and then they do things. I don't want to help my competitors at the same token.
Yeah.
Their design is their design. It's the best they've came up with. We help them fix their original design to what they're using now.
Okay.
you probably heard of like a Craftco BAX hose back in the day.
Yep.
It's an older kettle. Those were their original type design, and we changed it to this 12-volt system because that's what they required. So the hose design that they're using now is pretty much something Bob solved for them, and they have stuck with it. We
Okay.
machined all of their parts, all of their fittings, and then they pretty much kicked our sales guy Wally out of the business and told him never to come back. And then they refused to pay us $147,000 in stock.
Easy. Shoo.
So, yeah, they almost put us out of business, so a grudge kind of started there.
Dang. But you guys still produce Craftco hoses now, is that correct?
Yes, but not for them. They design them for themselves.
Okay, I got you. As far as the design and things go.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
we came up with that design that they're pretty much using.
Yeah.
And I mean, if I had more money, I'd be able to sue people. But I mean,
so when we talk about
we have patent on the design, so but
I got you.
Copies it for the most part.
I got
if you go into the patent office, it's my dad's name and my name on them.
Crazy.
That's how long I've been helping him do these things.
Dang, man, that's wild. How old are you, Evan?
I'm just turned 38.
Dang, dude, you've been in the game for a long time then. Way
I've been
back.
doing crack kettle since 2005.
Dang. So when we talk about your guys' hose, you mean the hose that's going to the wand, correct? The pump wand.
Yes.
Okay. And then are there any other hoses that are in there that you guys specifically designed or do or created or were part of?
We designed the Safety Flex series for line after our success with Craftco.
Okay.
They were using another company called Diebolt, I believe, at the time. That was not. There's also another hose shop. They're back east they don't really. They asked us to buy all their electric hose stuff out.
I got you. They were like, we don't want to be into this part of of everything.
Like, so and it's very hard to get them to understand because the Simline kettles we helped develop this hose. We got a larger diameter on the inside than Craftco did.
Okay.
We came up with a kink-proof technology, so it doesn't kink.
Okay.
I mean, it takes a lot to kink a hose.
Yeah. We use we use a Easy Pour 100 here at Wiscote, and dude, I don't know how I would ever kink that hose like with my arms, and that must have been one that you guys created, obviously, or was your design because it's just pre-heated hose, right? So a heated wand hose. So I mean that thing is like, it's massive, and not only that, like sometimes I look at that thing, I'm like, dude, how is that thing not cooked? Like, how did it not cook in here? All these times we've heated this thing up and unheated it. And I understand that you can, right? They tell us every time we buy a Craftco, they warn you, like, don't get it too hot. It's going to cook. And there's times where we've grabbed it and I've been like, dude, how is this thing not on fire? How is it not melting to the ground?
Yeah. Well, it really depends on where the hose is manufactured, when it was manufactured. Those big hot rubber hoses last a long time.
Yeah, they should.
You know what you're doing.
Yeah. I've seen. The
Easy Pour had the correct style boom on it, and like a lot of these guys started trying to make fancy booms.
Yep.
I mean, it has the swivel at the boom, pumps material right to the end of the boom, and the hose flows.
Yep.
That's what it should be.
Yeah. I once. I didn't specifically figure ours out perfectly, but my crew lead Chris did. He naturally just went there one day and was messing with it and figured out how everything works perfectly and flows perfectly. Once it's ready to rock, it's ready to rock, and we'll hang it on that boom, and I don't have any issues with it. I mean, once in a while it gets in your way a little bit because you get twisted sideways or whatever when you're using it, but for the most part, we haven't had any issues with it. How big was the engineering? Did you guys have any part from the engineering from that style hose to the heated hose?
No, we refused to kind of do anything that they came up with.
Yeah.
We look at their ideas, saw good things and saw bad things.
Yep.
And we eliminated what we thought would be the bad things. But one of the things we wanted was like an armor jacket down the hose, like we would use in other like cement plants and stuff. We put an armor jacket over the hose to protect it.
Okay.
But it's not physically possible because of the weight constraints.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So we couldn't use an armor. So we went with I have to order 200,000 feet of this at a time, and it's a double plied Kevlar weave cover. Like Craftco uses a single weave on their hose cover. We use a double, so it's the drag resistance on the operator.
Oh, really?
Because because it's Kevlar that's knitted one direction and then it wrapped again the other direction, so it helps double the length of your drag.
I got you. I've always kind of wondered that when I seen that, because I have noticed different patterns and different designs. I didn't think it was anything specific, but the double wrap
Yeah,
is
there's
better.
different types of weave if you look at a hose cover. Like you
Yeah.
can see it. There's cross weave, lateral weave.
Yep.
It all depends on what your goal is.
Huh. That's crazy.
And
So when you guys switched to the sim line, did they give you a little bit more freedom on how you wanted it, how they want it? Like you're like, hey, this would be the way it would work better, or more
yes,
material, or what? Is that how that worked?
yes, at first a lot at first, and then after 5 years of working with them and engineering and people started changing, then new blood came in and they was more of like, hey, no, we want this.
Oh, I
Oh,
got
we
you.
want this. And you're like, okay, well, the relationship's changed.
Yeah, yeah. It's got to
You
be.
know, and
I can tell it's frustrating.
oh,
Because
I've been begging them for years to let me put this interlock over the wiring to protect it,
yeah.
and they didn't want to absorb the cost of it. Then they designed their own hose and they put that over and say it's a better hose.
Oh, yeah. Of course. Yeah. Yeah. I gotta imagine it's frustrating as crap, anyways. Because like you're saying, hey, this is how we want to do it, and they're like, nah, and then they do it their own self. So I imagine they don't got to pay you the engineering costs, at least. You know what I mean? When they
Well,
just kind of take it and do it.
I've noticed Stemline is just trailing Craftco. Craftco, I think, puts money into their engineering to their people.
Yep.
I mean, I've been to their plant out here in Chandler 4 or 5 times. I've seen the asphalt plant.
Yep.
I mean, they're not joking around. They're out there
No.
taking it serious,
Yeah.
and they're working.
Yeah.
But
So
when I see Stemline, it's just a copycat cloner.
yeah. I mean, you get that a lot, especially in the podcast industry, Evan. Especially in the
Oh
podcast
yeah,
industry, people, will do something, and then all of a sudden, somebody else does it as well, and they do their best, right, to stay in stride and make it seem like it's the same thing. But as well as I do, it comes down to the creativeness, right?
oh yeah. Well,
So
there's like,
go ahead.
go ahead,
No, you go
go
ahead.
ahead, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
All right, so like one thing I know at Craftco, Stemline, everybody, they buy a part, they mark that part up, and they sell it to you.
Yep.
Here, there's only 3 components I buy. Everything else I make.
Oh, really?
Think about that.
Dang.
I have to have the cover made because I go to the best company in the United States to have the cover made.
Okay.
I go to a guy in India who makes all of the hose for me because I can't extrude the hose. It's impossible.
Right.
It's just impossible.
Right.
So they've been around for 70 years. They're good and they're not Chinese.
Yep.
And then the insulation. I cannot make the Kevlar knitted insulation.
So where do you go for that? Where do you go for the Kevlar insulation?
Oh, I have another company make it for me here in the United States.
Cool. So it's quality stuff, and majority United States made.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you look at our aluminum fittings,
yep.
I machine them. You look at the hose fittings, I machine them. The crimp collars, I machine them.
Dang.
All the welding done between the fittings and elbows, I machine them.
So if they put an order together, like if one of these companies puts an order together for, I don't know, how many pots does Craftco make a year? Of the 125.
400 to 600.
Yeah. So then you guys are, if they hire you, you're on tab to make 400 or 600 hoses just for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got you. Okay. Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
And then one of the things that guys, if you're in a crack, I can tell them if anyone's running a heated hose.
Yep.
The first thing that goes out is usually a heated hose, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It's the wear item. Your employee out there who's running the hose is not going to care.
No.
I have a hose that just came in that was from 2007. Right? That hose lasted, that guy, 2007 to now is what, 13 years?
Yep.
I mean, that's a long time to use one heated hose.
Oh yeah, for sure. We looked at buying a Craftco Super Shot 125 last year, and the price was okay, and we were looking to add it to our fleet. Then I got by the hose, and I noticed that like the hose had been wore through, whether they drug it or whatever. The wires were wore through, like everything, and it was only a few years old. And it was like, man, come on, guys. If somebody would took care of this, we would have a deal, right? And it's like they didn't even know how much the hose was going to cost to get replaced. I did, And I was like, dude, it's a deal breaker. Like, I'm not absorbing that cost. We'll just buy a different one, you know?
Yeah. And that's what I tell people. And like a lot of these hoses can actually be fixed if you just have a little patience and send it and say, hey man, is this fixable or not?
Yeah.
No, it's surprising. Like Craftco will no longer repair hoses or wands.
They want you to buy new
None
ones.
of their. Oh yeah, it's
Yeah.
easy. Well,
Yeah.
like, I mean, Craftco used to use this it's called an auto brand, but it used to be a push button activated switch.
Yep.
The cycle life on it was only rated for 100,000 cycles, and I got tired of fixing them because we were, doing a wand also. So I
Yep.
replaced the switch to a like 40 million cycle switch for snap action.
Yep.
And then they came out with that new wand 2 years ago, and they copied the same switch. I was like, damn it.
Oh, it's a good idea, Evan. It's a good idea. Yeah. Well, what other hoses in our industry do you all take care of? Are we specifically only talking about the wand hoses, or in
Well,
our industry, what else?
I make them for Steelmaster.
Okay,
They've
for
been
the
a
crack
great
pros.
customer. Oh yeah, a great
Yeah.
customer. I love their kettles. We had a lot of back and forth bantering. That's great. Where it's,
Yep.
I love their boom. We've been trying to get people. I mean, we came out with a patented boom, but nobody wanted to buy it because the hose makes zero contact with anything on the kettle ever, or the nothing to damage the hose from the kettle. So it free floats in space. So if it's going down the road, it's got a vibration absorber that's taking the shock. The hose and wand, everything goes onto the boom and never touches the kettle or the ground.
Really?
And
How
and
come
no one
nobody
wanted
wants
to buy
that?
it. I don't know because they didn't design it.
I don't believe that. I think somebody should jump on there. And with Sealmaster, so that Crack Pro is interesting because we're it's no secret that I'm invested in Nicotech, which is a great company, and they have been partnering with the robotic maintenance vehicle, the one that does the
Yeah,
robotic crack filling, and that's what's on
yeah.
there is the Crack Pro. So it's got to be your
I know.
hose on there that's going to that feed on that
Yeah, well,
robotic
I
arm,
could
right?
tell. I knew 7 months ago when they sent me a hose and they said the nut came off, and I was like, well, this nut doesn't come off that way. It can only come off this way. And I was like, is it on a robot head? And they're like, what? I was like, I was like, humans don't travel on an X and Y plane, and that's how this ripped off. And they
Yeah.
refused to say anything, so I knew it. But I still
Wow.
had to warranty the hose.
Well, I'll be there, so I'll be looking at it this time and be like, oh, this is what everyone was talking about. I'll be there at World of Asphalt here in a week, which this podcast will probably air after that. But yeah, went to see it and be like, oh, that's Evan's hose.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And if you look at that robot, I've already
ahead.
been looking at it, and I wanted to contact them and show them, like, dude, switch the boom to this, and you'll have no, because that robot's gonna kill some hoses. I can already see it.
Oh yeah,
Oh yeah, because that's a Fanuc robot, and we have all the machines here are Fanuc run machines.
yep.
I'm very familiar with Fanuc's product line, and that robot is an amazing robot. You can never dash it, but the way the hose is being routed around it, I see potential issues with the hose. Let's say an operator does something stupid and they kink it, and
Yeah.
it's in kink zones. There's some kink zones in there, but it could be easily moved around.
So what you're saying is for me to say, hey, if you run into hose problems, this is the guy. And then they'll be like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, we'll talk to Evan,
Wink,
and
wink, nudge,
yeah,
nudge.
we'll get it taken care of. Sounds like a plan. I know the guy. I know the guy. Yeah.
Oh,
So
perfect.
so let's just talk about more on the Seal Master side of it. They take care of quite a bit. They put out the same numbers, or are they
Oh
down a
yeah,
little bit? Yeah, I thought so. There's got to be about the same.
They're almost double because they have double heated hoses. Because a lot of their kettles are double pumpers.
Oh, now that makes
I mean,
sense. Yes.
I mean, we were struggling a little bit at the end of last year to keep up with their demand, so I hired some more people and had to put in more. We have another shop around the corner, and I had to turn half of that shop into keeping up.
Dang, man, that's crazy.
So I can't complain. I mean,
Yo.
it's and we're trying to do some things here in the works of making a newer hose to get rid of all these old generation ones, and just as things have changed, things I've learned. I mean, I've
Yeah.
learned some things and lessons that in my next hose I'm making, we want to just get rid of every problem we've ever faced.
I got you.
And I know Bob's really liking it because we've seen we're having a lot of stuff, but we have to retool and remachine all new parts and fittings to do this. So it's kind of a serious commitment. But I mean, it's better in the long run for everybody.
Yeah, some people don't like having to say that, but innovation sometimes comes at a cost for a while. But that's what keeps us pushing forward. It's been such a long leap. I love seeing the robotic crack filling machine because we've been essentially, besides like adding the little features onto like the heated hose and the boom horn or whatever you want to talk about, crack filling was pretty much the same now for the last 30 years until all of a sudden, kaboom, there's a huge leap. Somebody wants to decide to make a robotic system out of it. And I think like you're talking about, that innovation, sometimes it stinks to have to spend so much time and effort on it and resources and push forward. But if we don't do it, if somebody doesn't do it, we're going to be stuck at the same archaic kind of way for 30 years. And it's like, well, dude, we have to do something. Somebody has to do it. We just have to make it incentivized enough to do it.
Well, and that's one of my hardest goals. This hose has lasted. I mean, in function and theory, this hose has it's had a 2% warranty rate.
Really?
That is, I mean, from a product line, that's an amazing product for insurance purposes and things like that.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I didn't mind. We hit our piston match, but it's like they said, "Oh, you had a higher percentage rate for that." I'm like, not for 10 years with you guys. When you voluntarily take a hose and just replace it for a customer on your own behalf, that is not my warranty rate.
Right.
That is you making a warranty claim for your customer.
Right.
And then you don't send me the hose back to inspect it. I can't claim that.
Right.
But like, when a guy took a torch and burned a hole into the cover, that's not my fault.
Right. That's not nothing. That's not a hose defect. That's a human defect.
Yeah.
Or
like one thing people don't like is a wear point on a hose. If it's laying on a kettle somewhere and it's rubbing, there's wires and stuff in there. That's why it cuts them. That's why I was trying to get this boom sold to them so they could just
not have to deal with that anymore.
Never touch anything.
Yeah. I'll send one over. I guess I'll have to retrofit it to the Craftco Easy 100.
There you go.
So I want to talk about like the specifics of like a guy like me. So let's say I'm like, oh, I need a new hose. Does Copperstate do that? Are they do they sell hoses outright themselves to the public?
Yep.
Okay. So if you're a listener and you have a kettle and you need a hose, or you're going to be needing a hose, where would people go to find that?
They can go to www.copperstatehose.com.
Okay, that'll work. And then your guys' Instagram is at Copperstate Hose, correct?
Yeah, Copperstate_hose.
Okay. Yeah, so you can get on there and check it out. And if you just type in Copperstate Hose, it'll come up. They're doing a great job on the apps now of just like, if you get it close, they bring you to the right one. Yeah, instead of it having to be absolutely specific. So very good.
Well, the other thing is they can always call, and I'm very negotiable. I tell people, you call me, I'll make a deal with you versus, the online stuff. Online is set, but I mean, I got a customer. He's a single guy working his butt off. His wife passed away a couple of years ago, unfortunately, in a car accident. And he called me. He's like, "Man, I gotta put food on the table. Can I do something with this?" Like, dude, just I'll work with you.
Yeah.
Those are guys who can. This is a very tight industry we have.
Yeah, it is. It's one side or the other. If you're a good guy, you're going to be treated well and received well. You know what I mean? And it pays off versus there's a lot of guys that aren't, that are pretty reserved, and they're that old school mentality of, if you know anything at all or whatever, it's going to take from my plate. And that's not the case at all. It's like, there's so much blacktop. There's so much blacktop out there. And they keep putting it down. Like, until they decide to make flying cars, we're going to be okay. Like, just everybody relax. And even then, we're going to adjust in some way. So just relax, okay? And that's what I try to tell those guys. And you have good guys that scratch each other's back down the road. That pays dividends, because there's opportunities and networking that, at some point you're going to be in a pinch, and you might know the right person or whatever, and it gets you out of that little bit of a bind.
Well, that's one of those things like you have to. We have a guy out here, Cactus Transport.
Yep.
One huge. They have 14 kettles. 14.
Dang.
That's
Dang, they're
huge.
moving some rubber. Yeah, I was gonna say they're moving
They
some
do
rubber.
they do so much, and it's like they had an issue in that I got another guy who's CR Asphalt Mike. He's in Florida, South Carolina, and got them two together so they could problem solve an issue they're having, and bam, they lost.
Yeah, yeah, they're done. Have you ever heard? Have you guys ever heard of Farner Asphalt here in Wisconsin? FAH, yeah, FAHRNER. They're huge, man.
I have.
Yeah, they have the rigs going down the interstate that are pulling the Craftco, and the conveyor belts just dumping rubber in it one after another, one after another.
Oh yeah.
Dude, there's so many of those rigs out. It's super
You
impressive.
want to hear something funny about those rigs?
Yeah.
PennDOT actually invented those rigs. The
What
guy
did?
PennDOT, Pennsylvania Department of
Oh, really?
Transportation.
Okay.
Craftco stole the idea, patented it, then got sued, lost the rights. Craftco can't own a patent again for the rest of their business.
They can't own a patent?
No, because they lost in patent infringement court. So they violated someone else's patent, which means that company cannot manufacture anything under a patented idea again.
Dang, dude. Juicy details talking to you, Evan.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah,
Crazy.
the hose and crack filling kettle days of our lives.
But I laughed though too, because when Simline sued Craftco, they won. Then the president of Simline retired that same month, and Craftco never paid $1.
What a crazy scenario, dude! This sounds like a great makings of a Netflix documentary that maybe 400 people will watch. Where it's like, oh yeah, I really want to hear what's going on with it, but it's not mainstream. But yeah, it's crazy to think that there's been that much back and forth, but it's such a unique and niche part of a niche industry that it's you live or die by how well you're received. You know what I mean? Or how much you innovate, and just to have the options. And where we are, like, it's Craftco all the way. There's no Simlines around. But when you get down a little bit, down more to the south, you start to see Simline compete very well. And then, of course, spotted all over the country are the Sealmaster Crack Pros. So it's interesting.
That's the interesting thing is how the big giants treat the. I've noticed Sealmaster treats their dealers with the most respect I've seen out of every other company.
Yeah, and I would imagine that that's probably because they're multifaceted. You know what I mean? It's not just the Crack Pro that they're selling. There's more, there's material, there's product, equipment, tools, all that kind of stuff too. So I think that they're not pressed as bad.
Oh no, they're not. And I know everybody does it. It's like I was laughing the other week. I found these Cole Hershey switches that everyone uses on the Simline kettles.
Yeah.
Simline sells them for $47. They're $6. $6. I was like, oh my god. I don't even know if I should sell them for $6 because then no one's gonna believe me it's the right switch.
Yeah. Well,
there's no way.
You gotta warehouse them. You gotta ship them, Evan. You gotta ship them. So, so if you had, as we're winding down here, I really want to get a piece of advice from you. You've seen a lot. You've been around a while. You've been with your dad. You guys over there are well experienced making these hoses and whatnot. As far as a piece of advice, let's keep it to maybe a piece of advice about guys that have crack kettles. What would be the best thing they can do to help preserve the longevity of their hoses and those kinds of things?
Train your crew, maintain your kettle.
That's it. Train your crew, maintain your kettle.
That's it, because a lot of it comes down to faulty crews who do not care because you are the owner and they are not.
Yeah, and then
the biggest damage
it always
I
ends up.
see to
Go ahead.
Equipment is crews that do not respect their job. I mean, it's a hard job, but
yeah,
it's build a crew of 4 or 5, 6 guys that are super reliable, pay them good enough to where they want to keep working, and they'll stay.
Yeah, and you just got to train them to take care of stuff. I always try to tell the guys, I'm like, pretend like it's yours, and pretend like if something happens, you're gonna have to pay for it out of your pocket. Like then all of a sudden your mood changes quite a bit. There's times where I've been places where people have had something, they're like, here, hang on to it, try it out. Or like, here, take it for a spin. I'm like, no way, dude. Like I'm treating it like it's mine, and I don't know if I can properly take care of it. So I'm just gonna leave it sit right there because I know how much it's worth. Right. So
Right.
I try to get the guys to think that as well. Cool. Great piece of advice. All right, real quick before you go, and I got you on the phone, we are going to do pod decks. So I have a feeling no matter what I draw, you're going to give an interesting answer, Evan. You're an interesting fellow.
All right,
Come to find out.
let's see how it goes.
All right, ready? This one's kind of funny, I guess. Let's see. All right. What's something that people think makes them look cool, but actually makes them look ridiculous?
Shoes.
What do you think? Shoes?
Oh my God, people get so into shoes. I can't get into it. I just like.
I can't either.
I mean,
I can't either. There's especially
when I see some
nowadays.
people's shoes, I go, "What are you wearing?"
I know, man. I know. There's some of them where I got a young kid. He's 11. He's gonna be 12, and he's like, "Whoa, check those out!" And I'm like, "Dude, there's no way those are even close to comfortable, right? Like they wrapped them completely in hard plastic, or something that's like, there's no way this is cool." And sometimes they're so preposterously ridiculous with the patterns and what's on them that it's like, whatever, dude.
My daughter's got one shoe side is zebra stripes, the other is cheetah. I'm like, you do know in Africa those two eat each other, right? Or the one eats the one. And she's like, what?
Cool. All right. Well, Evan, thank you so much for entertaining us on this, man. It's been a great subject. It's a subject that doesn't get talked about very much, on our end. Anyways, I'm sure it gets talked about quite a bit there where you all are, but it's been a great insight. If you have questions or you want to buy a hose or whatever, or if you just want to check out what Copperstate is up to, of course, they're on Instagram as well. I'm sure if
you have a YouTube, I forgot to tell you about.
Oh, you do have YouTube.
And on the YouTube, I'm making videos to explain how to work on the hoses now in the field and do stuff because I'm trying to save myself hours of phone calls.
Perfect. That's why a lot of stuff I do with the podcast is for that reason. I want to touch on all the questions everyone asks me all the time when I'm out and about, or through email or through a phone. That way, I can just say, hey, send them the link or whatever. It saves me so much time, but I don't mind it. But, we field a lot of calls and a lot of messages and things like that. So you can go to Copperstate Hose. Is it online, copperstatehose.com?
Yep.
Okay. And then Copperstate Hose on Instagram as well. And then Copperstate Hose on YouTube now too. Evan, thank you very much, sir. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Hey, no worries. So for myself and Evan, this is episode 55 of Blacktop Banter. I want you to seal it, pave it, stripe it, and kill it. Peace.